Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome to the live stream of Chelsea versus Liverpool match reaction and player ratings. Welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year to you all. And what a blockbuster at the bridge. Under the lights, it finished Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2. And what a way to kick off the new year, George, at Stamford Bridge. A game that had everything, dominated in the build-up by Romelu Lukaku's untimely interview and seemingly not wanting to be at the club, and obviously coming out this morning that he wasn't to be involved in the matchday squad at all, to finding ourselves 2-0 down, to getting us back to 2-2. I mean, this game had everything. Before we get into it, mate, what did you make of the decision from Thomas Tuchel to drop Lukaku from the matchday squad altogether? The right one, ultimately?
Yeah, I agree with the punditry. I thought that it was the right decision, the right call from Tuchel. You can't have, as much as Tuchel's going to probably back Lukaku, you can't have that so close to a game of this magnitude to overshadow. I think he would have got a bad reception from the fans, and that would have probably diluted down into the performance. And ultimately, I think you have to have this hierarchy where the club's bigger. So if Lukaku was to start today, it's almost giving a free pass to saying, well, you can do and you can say what you want. And I know Tuchel probably feels like there were some quotes taken out of context, and maybe perhaps that it was construed in a way that's obviously going to cause rumours. But I think ultimately it was the right decision. And I'm going to get into it more, but I personally feel like we play better football without Lukaku in the side. I know that's quite controversial considering he's our biggest transfer of £97.5 million. But you saw it today. I mean, the intensity of the team was spot on. I mean, not at the start, but I think, bottom line, it was the correct call. And hopefully Lukaku will learn from this and appreciate that actually, he needs to get his head down and start producing on the pitch and focus on that.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I think we've seen all too often in the past, a lot of player power in play at Chelsea. Previous managers probably would have let things like that perhaps slide and the player would have been in the lineup, and it doesn't really send out the right message. Tuchel reasoning, obviously created a lot of noise really close to the game, and it just wasn't right for him to be involved. And I think ultimately that is fair. I don't think look, if it was like someone shit like Ross Barkley coming out of that interview, no one's really asked and they don't care. But the fact it's your club record signing, it's 6 months into joining. He's hardly played, not all his own fault, obviously been injured quite a lot with an ankle injury and then obviously COVID as well. But from his quotes, it feels like he doesn't want to be here. I mean, I'd like for him to come out and perhaps explain the situation himself. Maybe we'll see that in the coming days. Might be something early this week. Apparently, he's according to NBC Sports out in the States. Tim Howard, the former Everton goalkeeper, who's a Manchester United keeper, who's a pundit in America. Lukaku's apparently been in text contact with him, saying that he's having a meeting with the club tomorrow. Situation's hot at the moment, but he'll be able to say more tomorrow. I don't really know what that means. Does that mean that he doesn't want to be here? I don't know what's going on. I think bottom line at the end of the day is that Chelsea aren't going to sell Romelu Lukaku in January. So it's absolutely no chance. I think we'll probably at best try and patch things up, get through to the summer, and then reassess there. Because ultimately, we're still playing for trophies. Probably not the Premier League, but you just never know in football. But we've got the League Cup, the Club World Cup, the Champions League still, the FA Cup as well. And George, would you be of the opinion that we do need to reintegrate him back into the sides at some point in the next couple of weeks for the remainder of the season to boost our trophy-winning chances?
Yeah, I mean, time's a healer, and I think it's a bit too soon to start saying that, he hasn't got a future at Chelsea, because I think despite what personal opinions, we've brought him in to make that difference and to bridge that gap that we desperately need to. And there's no doubting in his goal-scoring ability. Again, as much as I personally don't rate him as a world-class striker, I still think that he adds value to the team and we can play a different way. It's just mad, though, that you can bring in a player of that magnitude, of that price, and then we're literally within 6 months, he's sounding like he wants to go. I just think, like you said, mate, and you touched at the top of the show there, like the player power is just mad these days. And just the unprofessionalism from Lukaku there. I know he's upset, and I know he's probably a bit homesick, and he was doing so well at Inter and probably didn't want to leave, but felt as if though the opportunity was too good and Inter needed to sell players, which is why Kante left in the first place. But just madness. And to be honest, for me, I've said it 1,000 times to you personally. I think you don't just buy a player, you buy a character. And that shows for me a lot of red flags regarding Lukaku's character, in the sense that, to come out with that at such a critical stage in our season, I just think I don't want that in our team. I'm sorry, but if it was me, yes, try and patch things up, but I'd be looking for someone else. I'm sorry. It just stinks for me. It's just not what you want around the squad.
No, at the end of the day, it absolutely isn't. The timing, obviously, I know the interview was 3 weeks ago, but at the end of the day, the media are just going to release that like when things aren't going well. I mean, things were going a little bit better prior to at the time of the interview, but like Chelsea, poor December period, thinking we're getting out of December, let's just get out of it, nothing else go wrong. And then like on the last day, that bombshell interview drops, and you're just thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, really? But that's how things work in the media. But yeah, ultimately, the right decision. You can't allow, it doesn't matter how big a player you are, no player's bigger than the club, you can't go out and do things like that. And this is a big call for Tuchel as well, because it would have been easy to leave him out if it was like, we're playing a Brighton or a Burnley or whatever, no disrespect to those sides, but it's a lot easier a call to make. But when you've got a massive game against Liverpool in the Premier League at home, you need your best players. And, I think this is one of the first times that all the fans are behind the manager here in this situation. We've seen it in the past where you'll have a split, fans against the manager, he should be playing, etc. I'm finding very few fans that I speak to or see on Twitter, etc. Everyone is 100% behind this manager. That's something we haven't seen at Chelsea before. It's quite refreshing in a sense to see that, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, it's really good that you've got, and he addressed it really, really intelligently in the press conference about there doesn't need to always be harmony in the dressing room. And I think that's important, that we're not, we're in a bad patch of form, haven't won a game at home for 5 or 6 games now, conceding goals. But there needs to be that counteract and that ability where players can, formulate their own opinions, and there's a bit of divide between players and coach staff. But there's no doubt that ultimately when they cross the white line, that Tuchel's got them in the message he wants to get across, and the players play for him. We haven't seen that meltdown that we saw with Jose when he came back, when it just literally looked like they wanted him out and weren't trying for them. And we never want to see that at any level, because, they're paid to do a job, but also, if anything, it's about the fans, isn't it? Put in your best effort for them. And we saw that today, despite, some poor errors, which have been consistently poor in this Christmas period. I think Chelsea showed some great resilience today and a togetherness despite what was going on off the pitch.
100%, man. I think that was a performance today that shows that these players and this squad are 100% behind Thomas Tuchel. I think in previous seasons or in previous years gone by, we're 2-0 down at home against Liverpool. In the situation we're in, those players are down in tools and we lose that game 3 or 4-0. The fight that we showed to get back into it is to be commended. And I think there's definitely some positives to build on for the remainder of this season. But the fact remains that we do need to be more clinical in front of goal. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, I'd like to try and put this Lukaku situation to bed. Try and reintegrate him into the squad. Obviously, we should get more details at the beginning of next week. And hopefully perhaps an explanation from Lukaku himself, whether it's for a statement, whether it's for an Instagram post or whatever it is. I think he owes the fans an explanation as to kind of what's going on, what's the meaning behind the interview, and what his true feelings are. Does he really want to be here? The one thing I will say about the interview is that I do admire the honesty and the transparency. That is the only thing. I know it's not good for us as a club. It seems like he doesn't want to be here, but it's so much better than having those generic posts being put out from players, 3 points thanks to the fans, all this nonsense. We want more from players in terms of communicating with the fans. Obviously, this is not perhaps a positive situation that we're getting these words in, but I just think it's refreshing as such that we are getting that sort of actual how the players are feeling, because you don't really get access to that. So I'd say on a pretty negative situation, I guess that's the only positive. At least we now know that he perhaps doesn't want to be here. And at the end of the day, it's disappointing as fans. It's our club record signing. He's a human being. If he doesn't want to be here, then we move him on and we just have to go again. But I mean, George, anything to round out on the Lukaku thing? I mean, before we move into the game?
No, I just expect that there'll probably be a statement or an apology to coming out saying that I never, because he did never say that he wanted to leave Chelsea. He just said that he misses Inter and he'll work his hardest and he'll be professional, which, I think people make the assumptions, but you should never assume. And I would expect an apology, but then we'll Tuchel will do the same. He'll say, well, that's done and dusted. Let's move forward.
Yeah, and it's vital to. I think it's vital that we put this to bed as soon as possible.
Yeah.
You don't want something like this dragging on. You don't want to get to, like, say, the end of next week and it's still not sure. I mean, in an ideal situation, it gets dealt with in the first couple of days next week, and he's back in the squad for the Carabao Cup on Wednesday. Possibly that would be an ideal scenario. Obviously, Chelsea don't really do things in an ideal scenario. It's always very chaotic, etc. But we can hope for the best. But in terms of the game itself, George, the lineup, I thought pretty much as expected. I did think Lukaku would play in the preview yesterday, but Kai Haber stepped in. The rest of it, really, not too many complaints at all. Given the wing back options we had, I think that's the best we could go with. Any complaints on the lineup from yourself?
No, I don't think so. We're still stretched with players. Obviously, unfortunate last match that we again had forced injuries that came off the pitch, the likes of Reece James, etc. So, yeah, I don't think any change. I was like you, mate. I wasn't sure if he would play or not. I was probably of the opinion that he wasn't going to feature just because I thought the reception from the fans would be pretty negative yesterday. But to pull him out the squad entirely, I thought was quite shocking. But lo and behold, I think Havertz is more than capable of playing that position. So there were no real shocks for me.
No, I'll tell you what, mate, what a start to a game. It was electric. I mean, the first talking point, literally inside the first 30 seconds, dividing opinion between pundits on socials, etc. Do you think that's a red card for Sadio Mane? And the fact that it wasn't referred to VAR, we'll come on to it later, but the Mason Mount one, which there wasn't a lot in it, that was referred, but this Mane elbow wasn't. I mean, are you surprised he wasn't sent off? And are you also surprised that it wasn't even checked?
Yeah, I'm more surprised that it wasn't checked, and it's been a theme of the weekend, to be honest. You look at the Arsenal game yesterday and how the first one's not checked. I mean, I know you're saying clear and obvious, and the second one was, so they probably got it right. But yeah, he's very lucky to get away with that, and I think the only thing that saves him is probably not getting checked, and the fact that it's so early on in the game that referees are a bit tentative to say, "Oh, let's send him off 30 seconds in." It very rarely happens. Whereas if that happens 60 minutes in, he's in trouble.
I just think that for me is a nonsense, though. Do you know what I mean? It's like It's like the equivalent of, you've killed someone, but it's a couple of minutes past midnight, so don't worry about it. But if you've done that at 12 in the afternoon, you're going away for 25 years. It's nonsense. Like whether you've committed a foul in the first 30 seconds or half an hour into a game, like it shouldn't change the fact that it's a red card. At the end of the day, if it's a red card foul, it's a red card foul. It doesn't matter when it is, but such is it these days. And I just think it's really frustrating and lack of consistency, as you cited the Arsenal game yesterday and in this instance today as well. I can only think maybe that's not checked because he's given because Anthony Taylor's given a booking. If he doesn't give anything, does it then get looked at? I don't know. But one thing is for certain, the standard of officiating in this country is absolutely awful.
Yeah, it's terrible, mate.
It's so bad. But I mean, things were happening so fast. We get a great opportunity through Christian Pulisic. I think it's a mistake from Trent, possibly. Yeah. Pulisic gets played in, I believe, by Kai Havertz, and he's literally one-on-one with Kelleher in the goal, and he fluffs it. And I'm just thinking, Jesus Christ. I mean, honestly, how many chances are we going to keep missing every single game? And so, unfortunately, Sadio Mane goes down the other end, and he shows the difference between clinical and not clinical. I mean, George, what were you thinking at that point? That very few minutes between those two opportunities. We fluff it at one end. Mane shows us how it's done at the other. I mean, it was a really poor mistake from Trevor Chalobah as well. Obviously not trusting his left foot there. I don't know why he's going to ground with his head. You could just see it coming from a mile off, and that was going to cause a big issue.
And you know what? That whole little section within 5 minutes epitomises Chelsea's Christmas period, really. Fantastic opportunity. Okay, if you're going to try and support him, you could say the ball was bouncing, so he couldn't hit it first time. He's trying to go around the goalkeeper because he wasn't even expecting it. But really, come on, this is top level football. You've got to be putting that way. And then Liverpool go up the other end. Okay, they get a mistake, but they capitalise on it and they take it. And just again, we go 1-0 up. It's a completely different dynamic. But unfortunately, that is the difference, as you said. Liverpool, who are so clinical up in the final third, take their chance, and we didn't. And we go 1-0 down, and you're probably going to come on to the rest of it. But it's just an electric start, I have to say. And Chelsea throughout played very, very well. But that was just that for me. That just epitomises. That was just classic Chelsea.
Mate, are you surprised at how open we were? Because watching the game as we just have, I've never seen us that open at the back in terms of like, it was more of a throwback to sort of some of the basketball type football we were seeing under Frank Lampard, like you go, we'll attack, you attack. And it was end to end. I haven't really seen Chelsea play like that under Thomas Tuchel. Are you surprised at how high a back line we were playing? Because Liverpool were getting in behind quite a lot and having a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, but you know what? It was quite refreshing in terms of a game. I mean, it was brilliant because both teams just decided, right, we need a winner in this game, so we're going to go for it. Because Chelsea had to win today to have any chance of staying with City. Liverpool, although it's probably a good point away from home in the grand scheme of things with City, keep on going. I think it was a 2 points drop for them, but it was just great to see that Chelsea really took the game to Liverpool and didn't sit back and give too much respect to a team that had been doing well at Stamford Bridge in the past. So I was surprised by the high line, and we did get caught out a few times. But on the other hand, I think sometimes you need that bit of aggression and that bit of intensity where we actually try and meet them, on the halfway line to try and nick the ball. And actually, the equaliser came from that, from Rudiger kind of going into Salah. So it works, and it also you need the luck going for you. Mendy made some good saves as well and kept us in it, but I think you need both to work in tandem for it to pull off. Otherwise, like you said, it could have been a 3-4-0 if it goes horribly wrong.
I mean, the tempo today seemed a lot higher. I was of the opinion, I think Gary Neville said it as well in comms, that do you think we play with a higher tempo when Mateo Kovacic plays in midfield instead of Jorginho? Because he's someone that picks the ball up, he drives forward. I think if Jorginho had played, I think the tempo perhaps wouldn't have been as high from us. I mean, it's not a criticism against Jorginho. He's a different type of player, and he's obviously very effective and very important to how we play in certain games. But, I mean, do you feel that with Kovacic in there alongside Kante, we can play with a much higher tempo in midfield?
Well, firstly, I want to say Kovacic was very deservedly man of the match today. He was outstanding.
I mean, I was just going to... Sorry, mate, you carry on. I'm just going to bring his stats up because he was unreal.
Yeah, and we need someone like him, if not better, who just carries the ball, looks forward, but his touch today, his aggression, his ability to win those 50-50s, and this is before the goal. If he doesn't score today, he's still man of the match for me. But the goal just, was...
Yeah, this is his stats here, mate. I've just got it up on the screen now. I mean, it's what we've been missing in midfield. I mean, what a performance that is. I mean, the guy has just been, honestly, unbelievable in the middle of the park. I mean, really, really good. And I think those stats kind of they speak for themselves, don't they, really? I mean, exceptional.
Yeah, and he's very underrated, not just, across the board, but at Chelsea as well, because like you said, we've got someone like Jorginho. We play a different way with Jorginho, who will manage the game a lot better. And you probably would have seen if Jorginho started not as classic game, because, Jorginho would have slowed it up purposefully to try and just recover the ball, have some time in possession. But Kovacic just always looking forward, and that's what we need more this season. That's what we need as a team. I think we're missing that creative midfield link who just, gets it on the half turn, looks for a forward pass. Kante did a little bit of that today as well, but just a great performance. And he's a classic, isn't he? As soon as I think we can do better than Kovacic, we don't, did okay at Madrid, came to Chelsea, he hasn't really, what does he offer? Does he score goals? No. Does he get assists? But then he just puts in a performance like that and you think, actually, we are very lucky to have someone like him, and he's seriously underrated.
Yeah, no, I think massively. And I think, when we've not had him he's been injured for a while, I think we've really missed his dynamism in the middle of the park. So an outstanding performance from him. Before we get to his goal, George, we find ourselves 2-0 down. And it's a great goal from Mohamed Salah. But, people are going to blame Alonso. And yes, he does get kind of turned inside out. But I think it's poor. Kai Havertz gives the ball away. Rudiger doesn't even bother tracking back. And when Mohamed Salah gets 1-on-1 against Alonso, it's only one outcome. And he finishes, and it's a great finish. But from a Chelsea perspective, George, we could have done a little bit more to try and prevent that. Yeah,
and I think it epitomises what's happened so far this season, where actually we've dominated pretty much every home game that we've dropped points this season, and even in this game we were on top, had the possession, seemed to have the momentum, but weren't clinical in our final third, and then we give away cheap possession, which we've done too many times this season. And when you do it against this very top opposition, if you look at the Brighton game, for example, the amount of times that we gave away the ball and they didn't punish us and only managed to get 1-1, you do that against Liverpool, you're in big, big trouble. And that's exactly what they did. Loose pass, Trent plays a lovely ball over the top in behind Alonso. And the reason why Salah scores so many goals is his first touch in every scenario, his first touch is ridiculous. And he puts himself in a perfect situation. Yes, beats Mendy at the near post, but he's about 4 yards out, so there's not a lot he can do. And I wouldn't say it's a great. I get a bit annoyed when the commentators, every time Salah does something, they say it's unbelievable. I wouldn't say it's unbelievable goal, is it? It's about 4 yards out. What I would say is that his first touch is world class, and that he's because he's at the top of his game, everything goes in at the moment. So you get punished.
I think he's. I have to say, I think he's one of the best players in the world right now. He is. I think he's probably arguably the best player in the Premier League at the moment. I know Bernardo Silva has been, but he's gone off the ball the last couple of weeks. I mean, I've seen a stat on Twitter. I won't bring it up, but Mohamed Salah's got 200 goal contributions, so goals/assists in 229 games to Liverpool. That is that's outstanding. I mean, when you see him playing like that, George, there's always a tinge of regret that he's not doing it in a Chelsea shirt. But I mean, what a player he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the best player in the world at the moment, and I have to hold my hands up and say that. I mean, I'm not. Again, I think some of these players do get overhyped in commentary because they get carried away with it. But you mentioned there, the stats don't lie, and his contribution to Liverpool is nothing but world class, nothing short of it. And we can look back on it and say, it was a mistake. But was it a mistake? He wasn't good at Chelsea, and sometimes like the Kevin De Bruyne situation, sometimes you need that rejection and that push to then go on and do better things. And unfortunately, he's one of those players that just was better away from Chelsea, and that's fair enough. I mean, he again punished us today, and he is outstanding. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, George, at 2-0 down, we were chatting during the game.
Oh, we were fuming.
Mate, I was half tempted to just turn the game off. I was done, mate. I was fuming.
Yeah.
It was one of those where I'm thinking, if we don't put ourselves together, we could lose this game 3 or 4-0, and it could get pretty ugly. What were you thinking at that point when we're 2 goals down and we're about halfway through the first half?
I thought the best chance is gone in terms of that one very early on before they'd scored. At 2-0, I thought this could turn into the kind of Manchester United situation where they just tear us apart. And I think, that's the difference. I think Thomas Tuchel must have said something, at halftime to keep them going anyway. But we get I think sometimes the games are changed by very fine margins, and I think if we go in at halftime at 2-0, I think it's pretty much, it could get worse. But actually, we get something out of nothing, and then we go on to score another one. And I think it just shows that the resilience Chelsea have to never give up in recent games. But I was thinking the worst, mate, especially when you're playing Liverpool. You just think we're just going to get torn apart here. But yeah, I mean, you're going to go on to say it.
I'm sorry. We've touched on Kovacic's performance briefly just previously. Yeah. But I mean, I guess, mate, the only way we were going to get back into this game was through a moment of magic. I couldn't really see us scoring from, by creating something decent. And I think it's a free kick down near the corner flag, comes in. I think it gets headed away by, I'm not sure who it gets. It might even be Alonso. It comes off. And I'm just seeing Kovacic at the edge of the box, and I'm thinking, this guy better not be trying to shoot from here. What's he doing? And mate, the techers are unbelievable. It was shades of Michael Essien, that one against Arsenal, and one that he got from the edge at similar position against Barcelona in the Champions League as well all those years ago. I mean, George, what a strike this is.
We don't often see worldies at Stamford Bridge because Chelsea just aren't the type of team to shoot outside the box for some reason. We don't tend to do it very often. But like you, mate, I just thought, God, he better not shoot because, I mean, how many goals does Kovacic score? Never. But it was kind of a desperate situation. And sometimes the ball just falls in a way that you think, I'm just going to hit this. There's nothing else to do. If I take a touch, the chance or anything else is off, and he's connected with it. And I'm sure as soon as it left his boot, he knew it was in. And just an unbelievable moment. And at that point on, the crowd get the noise up, and it just changed the whole dynamic of that first half. And the rest of the first half was history, wasn't it? Best first half of football I've seen in the Premier League this season, no doubt.
Well, mate, that first half was had 2 halves in itself, really, didn't it? To go 2 down inside the first half hour or so, and then we get 2 goals in the last 3 minutes of the half. I mean, Christian Pulisic, who does get the equaliser, I have to say, George, I thought up until that point he was dog shit. He was terrible. Yeah. And I hold my hands up. The guy is a good finisher on the guy, and he did actually improve a little bit in the second half. But up until that point, I mean, he was really, really poor, wasn't he? He's offering nothing, and you're just thinking, where's Christian Pulisic sort of really going at the moment? Do you know what I mean? I mean, obviously, that won't salvage his Chelsea career, but if he hadn't done anything in this game, there are big question marks that on top of the ones that are already there. I mean, before the goal, George, he was terrible, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was awful. He was awful. And again, it just shows how much confidence plays into football because, again, completely out of sorts. Couldn't do anything in that first half, and then he's presented a chance with Kante's ball over the top, and it's a fantastic finish from someone who looks like he's very confident, and we know how talented Pulisic is on the ball. He's a very talented individual, and you know that's a finish from someone who seems to be scoring goals every week, but he's not. And the transformation when he did score that to his second half performance just shows. Just those little moments where you get a decent goal in a big game can really drive him on. So I really hope that does push him on for the second half of the season and gives him some confidence because we know how talented he is, but he's just, fortunately, he's just a worse Eden Hazard, really. So we lost Eden Hazard, got Christian Pulisic in, and he's just not Eden Hazard, but he's still
need that consistency. That's the problem. Yeah. Like just not the consistency is just not there. It's not just him. It's the majority of the attackers. There's just no levels of consistency. But George, that goal actually comes from what you were talking about earlier, that high line. Rudiger nicks it. It comes forward to Kante, and then he obviously plays in Pulisic. But that's where the high line and winning the ball high up the pitch in defence has paid dividends and has obviously come up trumps with a goal. And also, we go in at 2-2, which is beyond our wildest dreams, really. Obviously, the intensity in the second half is going to drop slightly. Oh, of course it did. But I thought ultimately we probably played a lot better than Liverpool. Over the course of the game, but the draw was probably a fair result. We saw Jorginho come on for Chalobah, and we went 3-5-2. That's where, for me, obviously we switched it back about 10 or so, 15 minutes later. That, for me, is where we sort of dropped a little bit, and Liverpool started coming onto us a little bit more again. Do you think that was perhaps, in hindsight, a little bit of a mistake to try and go 3-5-2? Because we were a lot more in the game with a 3-4-3, and ultimately Tuchel did switch back. So I suppose that's him acknowledging that it was a bit of a mistake to switch to that midfield three. Yeah,
and fair play to him for changing it. I felt my one criticism of the whole game was at 2-2, particularly on that last 15 minutes. It just went dead. Actually, Liverpool had all the ball in the last 15 minutes. You'd expect the home side at 2-2. And we've got nothing to lose in this game now. We draw this game, we can forget the title anyway. I mean, we were pretty much out of it before even with, the draw or defeat. But you just think we've got nothing to lose here. If we lose, we're out. If we draw, we're out. So why don't we go for it a bit more? And bringing Jorginho just nulled the game a little bit. And it was just a shame because that game deserved a winning goal from whatever side it was. And it just, Liverpool completely killed it. We didn't have any of the ball in the last 10 minutes or so. So that was my only criticism, really, that he went for that option.
Yeah, I think ultimately, I'd say on the balance of play, as you say, there deserved to be a winning goal. Either side would have been worthy winners, but obviously, if either side had lost, you'd feel slightly hard done by. Mendy keeping us in it with some great saves. I mean, one thing before we go on to the ratings, mate, that's really irritating me is this late offside flag business. Why, when a player's offside, are they letting them run through and then have a shot on goal or whatever, and then put the flag up? It does my head in. I mean, do you understand why that's there at all? It's just ridiculous. We saw it about 3 or 4 times in this game alone.
I don't mind a slight delay, but I just think it's ridiculous how long they let it go for, to the point where actually we've seen really bad injuries occur because you've allowed the play to go on. But if you flip it and say sometimes the linesmen, they get it wrong and they put their flag up too early. And if you go to that straight away and then it turns out it was onside, then you feel like, well, why didn't you just let it go a little bit more? Because then you could look at it. But yeah, mate, I agree. I just think it's dangerous, really. It's really dangerous, isn't it? It's just, because players are still fully committed at that point. And if there's nothing come of it and the referee can see that there's nothing coming of it, just blow the whistle. I can get maybe you can play an advantage, the goal goes in and then you can have a look at it and see. But like you said, mate, at the top of the show, officiating is just appalling at the moment in this country. And VAR now, who everyone was like, oh, bless VAR, it's getting all the right decisions. Well, actually, I think it's we're just back to mess.
It's the officials in there. The technology's fine and the system's fine. It's the people that are up there doing the decision making. I don't know what's going on at the PGMOL, the guys in charge of officials in this country. Someone needs to sort their shit out because the standard of officiating is, God honest, dreadful.
I thought he was terrible today.
Yeah, he was terrible. We used to have some decent referees from England. You know, I mean, I know people didn't particularly like him. Mark Clattenburg, I thought was good.
Yeah.
Thought he was a really good referee. Howard Webb, even Graham Poll to an extent as well. We used to have decent referees. I could barely name us I think the best referee we've got at the moment is Michael Oliver. Other than that, mate, the standard of officiating is so poor. But I mean, I suppose on reflection, mate, a draw's the fair result, as we've said. Are there any? I know this draw was different to draws we've had previous at home against the likes of Everton, Brighton, etc. Are you concerned about our home form, though, mate? Because that's 5 draws in our last 6 home games, and that's also 4 draws in our last 5 games in the league as well. I mean, are you concerned by the home form and all these draws, or do you just think it's something we can get over in the new year? Because there seems to be a bit of a pattern emerging. We're not winning many games at home at the moment.
Yeah, you've asked this question to a lot of guests, and I was thinking about it yesterday. And Chelsea's been so renowned for being a fortress. Stamford Bridge is a very unique ground where it's very compact, very closed, very old school. And look, we haven't lost these games, so let's first of all say that. But again, if you look at this game, you probably take a draw against Liverpool because of the team that they are and the situation that we're in at the moment. But it's just one of those. I think it just came at a bad time. We don't tend to have very good Christmas periods. We were so good at the back that ultimately it was only going to take one bad game where the goals started to leak in, and they did. And I think it's just one of those things where, you know, once you lose that record where you win it or don't lose every game at home, I think, you know, eventually it's got to come to an end. And it's just a shame that all the points that we've dropped this season to be out of the title race have come in games that we should be winning, and they're at home. That's the most frustrating thing. Even losing those games on the road, you think, well, you know, this can happen. But at Stamford Bridge, you do expect better. So it's really frustrating to read those results as you listed them on the last episode, mate, when they were, you know, all listed down there. And it's just, and all of them, you know, none of them clean sheets either. So it was just frustrating. But I think it's an isolated case. I don't think Chelsea historically have got very good home form. So I'd expect it to bounce back.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. I think it's one of those things, isn't it, though, mate? It all seems to come at the same. It all seems to come at once, like Liverpool's Anfield record when they lost about 6 or 7. I think they might have lost 6 or 7 in a row behind closed doors last season. It just seems when your form's out at home, it seems to go for a few games and it sort of kind of rectifies itself. So I'm sure that we can get back to winning ways at home. Definitely. But mate, let's get into these player ratings then. Starting with Edouard Mendy in goal. I'll just bring it up. Last game before he heads off to the African Cup of Nations with Senegal, and Kepa takes over between the sticks. Mate, a really good game from Mendy today. I thought he was really good. A couple of moments where the distribution was poor, but I mean, other than that, he kept us in the game, mate. Made some really, really good saves, and we're definitely going to miss him. I'd probably give him a 7.5. What did you make of him today? I thought he kept us in the game.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, mate. I think that apart from maybe there was a couple of times where he's just tried to loft the ball and it's gone out. His shot stopping again was top draw. Can't do anything about either goal. So I'd probably rate him a little bit higher. I mean, but yeah, 7.58 for me. I completely agree. I think he had a good performance again.
And mate, how are you concerned? I mean, I'm not as concerned as I might have been a few months ago about him going, but I mean, it is a big loss, isn't it, for the month of January, considering we've got 2 legs of the League Cup semi, we've got Spurs and City in the league as well to come. Kepa's going to have a big job on his hands.
I'm not as concerned as a lot of people are, just because you know, Kepa would be a number 1 at most Premier League clubs, and you've seen other players like Ramsdale and even the Liverpool goalkeeper today, who's far less experienced than Kepa and have actually settled in really, really well. So this is it's a make or break for Kepa, really. He could really shine in this period and say, you know, I really am a decent goalkeeper. Or we could really see where, you know, like that Salah chip today, does Kepa absolutely howl that because he's too far off his line? It's little margins like that Kepa sometimes switches off, where Mendy's actually very much, you know, he's always in the game. But no, I'm not worried. And I think, you know, we'll be fine with Kepa anyway, I think.
Moving on to Trevor Chalobah. Obviously went off. He went off today. I'm not sure if it was potentially a potential muscular injury. I'm not sure if anything's been confirmed on that. Went off in the second half for Jorginho. A mixed bag from him today. A couple of mistakes early doors. One really bad one that's cost us a goal there. I mean, why do you feel he's gone with his head there, George? Why has he not gone with his left foot? I mean, I know he's a young player. He's going to make mistakes, but the last couple of games, I suppose he lost his man for the Danny Welbeck equaliser against Brighton, and he's made a really bad error here. I mean, what did you make of his performance today? I thought he was average today, to be honest. I mean, at best, I give him a 5.5, but probably a 5. But I think we had to give a little bit of leeway for the fact he's a young player, hasn't played a lot of football at this level, and he's still learning. But yeah, there were some poor errors from him today.
Yeah, you know what? At the time of the game, I remember messaging you and being like, "Oh, he's been awful," and I was really angry just because I hate it when just we make errors that can be so easily addressed and like we've handed them a goal. But just as you said there, mate, I think we've got to look at the wider picture and think, we bang on constantly, season upon season. So does the Premier League about bringing young players through, giving them an opportunity. So then we can't criticise if young players who, they're basically being exposed to the very top level make mistakes, because they're going to make mistakes. Even the best players make mistakes. Thiago Silva, I remember a game against, I think, Watford when he first arrived, made an awful error, like basically just squared it. And he's one of the most experienced players going. So on reflection, these things happen. And actually, he did recover quite well. I thought he made some very good last-ditch tackles as well, showed a bit of class on the ball. So we can't have the best of both worlds. We can't say, let's bring these young players through, but then every time they make a mistake, say, oh, he's out the team or he's played awful. So I agree. I think he was in the middle level there for me.
Yeah, I mean, without the mistake, I probably would have given him a 6, but he's got to lose. He's got to lose a point for that. So I just think average from Chalobah today. He'll have better days, but he's been a bright spark this season for us, 100%.
Yeah.
Obviously, moving on to Thiago Silva, who has been outstanding this season. It was really important to have him back in the middle of that back three. I mean, what did you make of him today, George? I thought okay, perhaps not one of his better games, but not really too many errors and pretty solid.
No, mate, I thought again he was class personally. I mean, maybe a quieter game, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because again, when you concede 2 goals, you think as a backline you haven't done your job. Ultimately, that's the bottom line. Their line is to keep clean sheets, but individually, again, just so good on the ball. I think apart from one pass that he played astray when we were keeping, doing a bit of keep ball, and he's just played it straight out. I think again he was pretty faultless, mate. I mean, he's keeping that back line together. If Chalobah's playing alongside Christensen today, for example, or something like that, I think, or Sarr, I think we would have lost the game today. I think Silva, for me, Silva and Van Dijk are next level defenders for me.
Yeah, no, they are, mate. I mean, what
give him a 7.5, maybe.
Mate, I'd like to give him a 7, but the fact we've shipped in 2 goals, I know not necessarily his fault, I'll probably give him a 6. But to bring it down to a 6.5.
Yeah, I'll settle for that.
That seems a little bit harsh, I know, but I mean,
you are very harsh.
No, mate. I mean, we have at the end of the day we have conceded 2 goals.
Can't wait to see what average Aspie gets.
average Dave, mate. Moving on to Rudiger. I have to say, a mixed bag from him. I would say. I thought first half, I think it was poor for the Salah goal that he just didn't really bother to track back. He did redeem himself to an extent where he wins that ball high up the pitch to set Kante on his way for Pulisic's equaliser. And then I thought in the second half, mate, he did really well to keep Salah quiet. I thought Salah was a lot quieter in that second half. He had 1 or 2 attempts, but he wasn't in the game anywhere near as much as that first half. I mean, I'll probably give Rudiger a 6. And it's a shame that, I'm just waiting now any day for the news to arrive that he's leaving. I can't see how he signs a new deal now, but never say never in football. But I mean, George, what did you think of him today?
Yeah, I thought he was good, mate. Like you said, I think the first half he struggled, particularly when you're working with Alonso on that side against someone as pacey as Salah, he's pretty much on his own because you can't rely on Alonso to track back or for him to make up the ground. So Rudiger was basically playing a left back as well today, and got caught out a few times, but he redeemed himself very well. And he was no worse than Chalobah or Silva, I didn't think. So I thought overall, it's like your brother said though, mate. I'm still outstanding that Chelsea just haven't set. Why aren't we settling this down and getting him on a new contract? There must be something that's going on where he actually wants to leave, because I can't imagine Chelsea saying that we're not giving him a contract. I find it,
mate. For me, as you touched on, there must be something more to it. If it was a money dispute, I mean, look, we've offered 140 and he wants 200. Why we just wouldn't offer 200 is beyond me. There must be something more to it. Maybe he's privately said to the club that I don't want to sign a new deal. I'm going to be a professional, perform on the pitch. It's got to be that. It's got to be. And I think he just perhaps wants a new challenge, because I can't think of any other reason why this deal's not been signed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's got to be that.
Really,
It's got to be that he wants to go, but he's just got his head down, I think.
yeah, I would agree with it. But I'd probably say Rudiger, perhaps not as good as Silva today, but I don't know.
6 is fine.
I'd
I think
probably say I think a 6 is fair. Mate, let's move on to Average Dave, as we call him. Club legend Cesar Azpilicueta. In the right wing back slot today. I thought today, mate, was a game where, we know we missed Ben Chilwell and Reece James anyway, but having both of them out, the wing backs today just weren't effective. I mean, Azpilicueta, look, his legs are going a little bit. I thought defensively he didn't do too badly. But yeah, just not really got the legs anymore. I'd probably say just an average performance from him. Do you know what I mean? I'd probably say it was, I don't know, probably on a par. I know he didn't make a mistake like Chalobah. I'd probably say Aspie maybe a 5.5, a 6. Not awful. I know he had to cover Chalobah a few times. But yeah, not bad. Probably 5.5 or a 6. He just hasn't got the legs to wing back anymore. But I would have much rather him there than Pulisic or Hudson-Odoi, just because defensively he's so much better. And up against Mane and Salah, you want the best defender you can possibly put there.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this system where our fullbacks are so critical, getting balls in and everything else, he just doesn't offer that. It's just always he'll get high up the pitch, maybe play the odd ball down the line to Mount, but it's often just a cutback. Can't cross, hasn't got the pace to take on anyone. I just wonder if he would be better where Chalobah plays, and then you just play Reece. I would prefer that. I just think he could mould quite well into a centre half, given that his experience and his positional sense is still very good, but he's just not got the pace to play that wing back. But I agree, mate. I can't give him more than Rudiger. I think a 5, and I think actually he did have an average Aspie performance today.
Mate, having given Chalobah a 5, I think we have to give Aspie a 5.5, just based on the
mistake. Yeah, fair enough.
Because Chalobah made a goal. His mistake led to a goal. Obviously Aspie had to play there today. He's much better in a back 3 for me now. I think he just plays wing back as an emergency, as we're in at the moment with both our first choice wing backs out. Moving to the left hand side, George, everyone's favourite Chelsea player, Marcos Alonso. I thought he was poor today. I've got to be honest. A couple of moments, that one where he could play it across to Kai Haber, he smashes it over. He gets turned inside out by Salah for the goal. Obviously that can happen to a lot of players, but it wasn't great from him. Free kicks into the wall, giving the ball away, etc. I thought it was below average, and we just desperately need to announce a wing back signing on that left hand side this week, because we can't carry on for the rest of the season like this.
It's really tough for him because it's such an easy scapegoat to go to, because we know he hasn't got the pace, and when you're playing Liverpool, he's been set up a treat here because he's playing against Trent and Salah on that side. I don't think many left backs could do a decent job against those two, as shown with their success in recent years. So I think first it's really harsh considering we haven't got anyone physically to replace him. He's having to play every week at his age. I think his legs, at the best of times, aren't great. So he is going to be feeling it, and he's being asked to do a lot. But yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, like we've touched on, the system needs, a bit of pace, a bit of trajectory in the final third and delivery. And he's got good set play. He's okay. He's good from corners and free kicks. And I think he's a great second choice left back. But unfortunately, we've probably seen the best of Alonso in a Chelsea shirt. And I've always liked him, so I'm never going to slate him. Even today, because I think the opposition, not a lot of people could do better, but unfortunately, yeah, it was an average performance from him.
Mate, I think we're looking at a 4 out of 10 here for Alonso. I thought it wasn't good. Mate, moving into midfield now, these two were our best 2 players on the day, 100%. Yeah. Kante just putting in one of those Kante performances. It's almost like having a cheat code. Having Kante, it's unreal. It's like on back in the day on the old Vice City, bashing in those weapons cheats to get everything, mate. It's like, honestly, Kante is just like putting one of those in. The guy was unbelievable, and he's added so much to his game. Particularly, I was saying in the preview with Jamie, who we had on, he looks so much more comfortable going forward. He's not a forward player, midfield player, but he looks a lot more comfortable now when he breaks forward into that attacking third. And today he was just outstanding. It was one of those vintage Kante performances. I mean, George, what did you make of him? I thought it was outstanding. I'll just bring his. I can't be bothered to bring his stats up because I have to cancel that off. But his stats were unreal. 100% tackle success, 100% take-ons completed, 100% long pass accuracy. Completed 61 of his 71 passes. The most ball recoveries, 14. Created the most chances with 3. I mean, he got an assist as well. This was the Kante of old. And, I mean, what a performance from him today.
Couldn't say any more, mate. Just ridiculous. Any other team in the Premier League, if not the world, would have him. We're blessed to have him. And can't say any more, mate. I agree. Kovacic and Kante were the best players on the pitch by a mile today for us. So it can't be anything less than an 8, possibly higher. I mean,
I was going to give him a 9.
Yeah, it can't. It has to be an 8, 9, 10 bracket because I think he was outstanding today,
mate.
No doubt.
I know this is obviously an obvious question, but how important is it that we keep him fit for a long period now? Because he's been so in and out of the side, picking up little niggles here and there. We need to wrap him in cotton wool, essentially, don't we? Like, I know he wants to play games, but if we've got games coming up, no, I'm not saying in the next few games, but if we've got games that we can get by without him, we just need to not use him because he's so important to how we play.
He probably is the most important player in our whole squad, like in terms of just everything, because that transition from defence to attack, the way he carries the ball, just an unreal player. Well, seems embarrassing now looking back, saying I thought we saw the beginning of the end of Kante.
Nah, mate. At the time, you say things, and we own up to it. Yeah. If we get things wrong, we own up to it. I mean, I was slating Pulisic on Twitter, and then he went and scored. It's just the way it goes, But yeah, Kante. I mean, moving on to Kovacic, obviously Sky Sports man of the match. He was the best player on the park by an absolute mile. We've already spoken about him beforehand. The goals, Worldie, the way he gets around the pitch, breaking up play, mate, his touch as well is class. I mean, what a performance from him! And I have to say now, I think that's our best midfield. If we're playing the pivot with the 2, I think that's our best midfield 2 we've got. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's taken us a long time to figure it out because midfield's always been a bit of a grey area for us under Tuchel. What works best and the pairing. And I have to agree. I think on the basis of that performance, I mean, we probably need to see more of these 2 playing together. But in terms of the energy that he brings, I'm not going to say goal threat because I think that was 1 out of a million, chance that he's actually put away. But yeah, I think he adds that little bit extra that Jorginho doesn't offer. And I think it's difficult, but I agree. I think he was the best player on the pitch. He has to get a 9 point. He has to get above Kante. Yeah, 9.5.
9.5, mate. Our best player, and we just need to see more consistent performances like that from Kovacic. But yeah, I mean, what a player he is. And like you, mate, I was unsure of him, and it's really until perhaps the back end of last season and now this season where we've kind of really appreciated him because I wasn't that convinced in him at all. I to be honest, mate, I was actually slightly fuming when we signed him for 40 mil under Frank in that first season. Yeah, I was just thinking, like, why have we done this? But obviously, he's proven us wrong. And what a football player he is. Right, let's just round out these ratings with the front 3 then, mate. Mason Mount, I thought an average game from him today. I've got to be honest. He works hard like he always does. Lucky. I don't think Lucky obviously had that moment where it was referred to VAR for a possible kind of stamp out of that Simicast. I think right decision ultimately made there, not a red. Almost a bit of a nothing game for Mason today. I just thought he was kind of average. What did you make of him, mate?
Yeah, you just expect more from Mason. You can't ever fault his effort on the pitch at, running and putting in effort. I know you say that's the bare minimum from any footballer, but you'd be surprised at how many players don't do that. So his intensity is always there. He always gives it 110%. It's just unfortunately not getting the chances or the goals that we expect from Mason, particularly when he's playing in a front 3. Disappointing. But again, we've got to take into account the level of quality of opposition that we're playing against. And it's not easy. You get very few chances in a game of that. And actually, it was a game taken out of context because there were actually a lot of chances in this one. It's not often like that, but again, you just want more from him. But we can't keep. We said this earlier on in the season. he set the bar so high that it's very difficult to maintain those levels, and he's still very young.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to give him a 6, but I think a 5.5 is probably where it's at for Mason Mount today.
Like, I would have gone 6, but you're in charge.
Let's go 5.5. I think I just don't think he was that much better than average, to be honest, today. I know that sounds quite harsh, but by the high standards he set himself. I mean, let's move on to Christian Pulisic. If we were basing it on that first 40 odd minutes, he probably would have got about a 2 or a 3 because he was shocking, as we said. He gets the goal, and I thought he was and then from there on, I thought he was pretty decent in the second half, and he certainly redeemed himself, and he did show glimpses of what he can offer this Chelsea side. But as we've said so many times before, needs to do it on a more consistent basis, influence games more often. I mean, how did you see his performance from his goal onwards? I mean, obviously we've got to take that first 44 minutes into account where he was dreadful, but I'd probably give him maybe a 6.5, possibly pushing a 7, because he did push on a lot after that goal.
I thought the second half performance was very good, and the Pulisic that we want to see. If not, he's still kind of tentative a little bit to believe in his own ability to take on players, because I felt he could have pushed on a little bit more when he got the ball, but he was the central point of creation in that second half. And like we said, it's amazing how a goal in a big game can change your confidence level, and hopefully that'll push him on for greater things this season. But yeah, mate, again, we've got to take the whole game as a holistic viewpoint, and he was shocking. He was probably the worst player in that team for the first 40 minutes or so. So, yeah, we just, if you look at that front three and you think we just haven't got anyone who's really going to push us forward. In terms of, we're not going to have anyone who pushes us forward who's just so clinical, and all the other big teams have it. Liverpool with Mane and Salah and City, and it's just so frustrating that we've got a lot of talented players in that top three, but no one can really.
Articles.
So I can't give him higher than I'd say 7's a tad high considering.
I think we go 6.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And then lastly, to round out the ratings, mate, Kai Havertz, obviously first football he's played since West Ham away at the start of the month. He's been out of injury and COVID. That does need to be taken into account. I didn't think he offered very much at all today. I really don't. And for me, I've said it many times, that credit in the bank for scoring that Champions League final goal is rapidly running out, or it's run out already. He's
never run out, mate. Never.
Mate, he has to do more. He has to do more. Just not consistent enough. For someone that's, so technically gifted as a football player, he looks like he's always going to give the ball away sometimes. And there's definitely a player in there, but again, not a finished article. And we need a better balance of finished articles with potential, because Kai Havertz is still potential. But, having said he's been out, almost a month, and then with COVID, etc. as well. But
we can't keep saying about that.
No, we can't. He needs to offer more. And today I thought today was really poor.
Yeah, again, it's the thing. It's an opportunity for him where Lukaku's not playing. It's a big game. He can really step up, and we talk about Mount and giving it 110%. I just think Havertz, I watched him very closely today, and I don't think he believes in himself. Every time he gets the ball, he's always looking, shall I pass backwards? He doesn't believe he can take on players. And we've got a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation with him, because for Germany, he's a completely different animal. But for some reason, for Chelsea, he just can't win those 50-50s. Not an awful lot of pace. Doesn't create enough in terms of going for goal. So it's a difficult one for me to round up. I think he's. Mate, I still think he'll play better without Lukaku, but I mean, I think he was shown up basically by Liverpool's back four today. It was very quiet.
Mate, I mean, if we're giving Alonso a 4, I'd probably say he was a touch better than him. I think at best we're going to have to give Kai Havertz a 4.5.
Yeah, I can't say.
He wasn't average. He was below average today.
We need to stop protecting him. If we're not going to protect Werner, we need to stop protecting him. He had COVID ages ago. I mean, people have been back at work and said, you can't keep saying I've got COVID, so I can't do work today for about 5 months. I mean, it's fair. And Havertz does need to do more. He really does, and he's not the only one. But yeah. We need a lot more from him, because if Lukaku's going to miss perhaps the Tottenham game if this situation doesn't get sorted, we don't really have any goals in the team at the moment, and that's a big problem. But yeah, a 4.5 for Havertz, and I
I mean, it was a great game to start the year at Stamford Bridge, but we need to start picking up some wins. We've got a big week coming up. We obviously first got the semi-final of the Cup against Tottenham, and then we kickstart our FA Cup campaign at home to Chesterfield. Obviously, lost back-to-back finals now. Can we make it third time lucky there? That's obviously just myself and George's thoughts on the Liverpool game. 2-2 draw, and that's our player ratings as well. So guys, thanks for tuning in if you've watched live. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and in the chat. Appreciate all of your support. We move on to Tottenham Wednesday night in the Cup now. Antonio Conte coming back to Stamford Bridge. Be interested to see what sort of reception he gets. But yeah, as always, get involved in the comments if you agree or disagree with our player ratings or anything we've said. Make sure you do smash a like on this video. Please do click that subscribe button. We're climbing up now, so we're getting towards the 250 mark. We need to push on to 300, so every new subscriber helps. So if you've been watching this and you're not subscribed, just click that subscribe button. We appreciate all of your support. Thanks for everything so far. It's going to be a big year for the channel. But yeah, guys, it finished Chelsea 2, Liverpool 2 to kick off 2022. And we will catch you in the Spurs preview in the next day or so. Up the Chelsea as always, and see you soon, guys.